Well, welcome to the channel. This is a bit of a departure from my normal videos about curing and smoking, but I've got a wonderful apple tree in my garden and I thought I'd show you how I make my apple juice before the squirrels get it all. Well, I mean what I say. The squirrels have kind of been up in this tree every day trying to take apples, and I mean there is enough for them, to be fair. This tree has really had a fantastic yield this year. Two of the branches have actually broken because they've had so many apples on them. Anyway, let's go through this whole process and I'll show you how I press this into fantastic apple juice. So we now have some more apples and we'll go and chop these up, put them through the scratter. And this is for crushing the apples. It's got this handle here which takes the apples through there. We've got our press. Obviously this bag has to go in first, and this squeezes the apples which come out. They go through this really fine mesh filter sieve into this jug, and then when this jug's filled I just pop that into here. Right, the apples. So here they are. Look at that. I mean that's absolutely stunning, isn't it? These are great eating apples. They're not very good cider apples. I've tried making cider with these in the past and they don't have that acidity and that bite. These are far too sweet. So to make good cider you need apples with a little bit of acidity. Now at the front of my house I've got a couple of different varieties. One's called Yarlington Mill and the other one is called Black Dabinet, and they are good cider apples. So I'll be using those once they're a little bit older and producing some more apples to make a small batch. And I'll mix some of these in with it as well, just to give it some really good sweetness, because these do have a lot of sugar in them. And that's why they make fantastic apple juice. So let's crack on. I found that chopping them like this when they're going into the scratter, it makes it a lot easier. If you put whole apples in, they tend to just bounce around. We're going to be crushing these apples with the skin on, and we're not even coring them or peeling them. Everything's going to go straight into the scratter. The only thing I'm cutting out is where the squirrels have been having a go at some of the apples. Well, I've scratted all my apples, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition the hopper over this side, and I'm going to reintroduce some of this back into the hopper. In fact, I'm going to scrat it twice essentially, and the reason I do that is because you get some reasonably large bits coming off here, so it just gives it an opportunity just to take a little bit more juice out of it. And when you press it, it just eases the amount of effort you need on the press, and it just kind of gives you a slightly higher yield as well, so I think it's worth it. There's lots of lovely juice in this. You can see these apples oxidise and go brown quite quickly. Okay, that scratting has been done a second time. It's a lot finer now, and we've also got a lot of juice being produced here as well, so it's now time to get this all into the press. Okay, first thing our straining bag can go in. So we've got the juice coming out into our sieve, and we've got a 10 micron filter here, so that takes out really some of the larger particulate bits that come through, that happen to escape through some of the smaller bits of apple pumice, but it still gives us a nice cloudy apple juice, which I think is premium.
Well, in order to get all the apple pumice in here from that plastic bucket, I need to press down the apples that are in there already, just to compact them a little bit so that we can make some room for everything that's in that bucket. This takes a short while, but it's a necessary step.
2 litres in there. Right, so I'll empty that before we actually start pressing, or we'll be in a whole hill of trouble. See, that pours quite nicely through there. Well, it just catches anything we don't want in the apple juice. Should be able to just ease that up to the middle like so. You don't need to use the handle initially, and you'll see if I just angle that down a fraction, you'll see as I begin to do that, flow will really start to increase. That's 7 litres on the mark, and that's about half a litre in there. So that's 7.5 litres in there in total.
Okay, that's great. We've got 7.5 litres of wonderful apple juice. We're now just going to bring it up to temperature to sterilise it. And while we're doing that, I'm going to try what's left outside.
Actually looks like a nice whiskey, doesn't it? It's got a little bit of sharpness, and I think that comes from some of the apples that we picked from under the canopy of this tree, which didn't actually get to ripen, as well as the ones on the outside. But nevertheless, this is absolutely stunning. Yep, job done. Okay, so here are the bottles that I'm using. I've got an old milk container. I've really given that a good scrubbing out, and that's been sterilised. I don't need to give that a heat cycle. That's all good to go. Now, the other bottles I'm using are these sort of Grolsch beer resealable type caps. Now, I've rinsed these all out. These have all had apple juice in them previously. So I've rinsed them out. They will then go into my oven. I'll set that oven to 80 degrees, and they will sit in that oven for about 10-15 minutes, and that should sterilise them all, and then they'll come out and we'll fill them up. But in the meantime, we're going to wait for this to come up to temperature. Come and have a look in here, see what you think. So this is our apple. See how it's pressed down all the way, over halfway down there. There's not a great deal of juice left in that. Okay. We'll lift that off and throw this away, I think. Our recycling waste. Actually, if you run your hand through that, that's actually quite dry. Yeah, I mean, if we had a hydraulic press with unlimited tonnage, we could press this down and get a fair bit of juice out of that. I would have thought maybe an extra half litre, but you know, it's not really worth it. Right, oven's on, set at 80 degrees. We'll leave those. Inevitably when you heat apple juice up, you do get a little bit of this scum coming off it. And we'll just take as much of that off as we can.
Now don't worry, the scum is perfectly edible, and if you want to leave it there, it just adds to the rustic nature of your apple juice.
There we go, that's warm enough. Right, we can knock this off and we can start bottling.
So all the bottles have come out of the oven, they're nice and cool now, and I like to put the juice in while it's still hot. These will remain fine in the fridge for about 2 weeks, and if you put them into plastic containers like the milk jug I've got, you can even freeze this.
So here we go, we've got 2 litres here, 3 litres, 4, 5, 6, 6.5, 6 3/4 litres there. That is pretty good going. Now I'm just going to let these cool down. Once they've cooled down to room temperature, then we can stick these in the fridge. This one is going in the freezer. This is great. We can open this in the middle of winter when there's no leaves on the trees and we can enjoy that beautiful apple juice. But before we put anything in the coolers, we're just going to allow it to cool down to room temperature. There we go.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's such a wonderful thing to do, making your own apple juice. And if you make your own, do let us know how you do yours in the comments below. I'd be really interested to hear that. In the meantime, folks, take care and I'll see you on the next smoky video.